The thing narcissists fear most isn't your anger, your tears, or your threats. It's your complete and total calm. We've been talking about toxic personalities, and today we're diving into something that's going to change your life. This isn't just theory, this is a practical, real-world strategy that will give you your power back. So if you haven't subscribed, do so now. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Now, let's get straight to it. The shocking truth is that your calm, your emotional stillness is absolute kryptonite to a narcissist. I learned this the hard way when I was dealing with a narcissist in my own life. I tried everything. I argued, I presented facts, I got emotional, I pleaded. And you know what? It was like throwing gasoline on a fire. They loved it. Every tear, every raised voice, every ounce of frustration was a victory for them. It wasn't until I stopped, took a breath, and just became still that I saw the change. It was like a switch flipped. The confusion, the panic in their eyes, it was palpable. You have to understand these people are wired differently. They're expecting you to react, to get emotional, to give them that narcissistic supply they so desperately crave. They poke and they prod and they push your buttons, waiting for that explosion. That's their fuel. That's how they know they have control over you. But when you stay calm, oh boy, you just took their power away. You've unplugged them from their energy source. You've left them standing there in the dark, holding a cord with no socket to plug into. They don't know what to do with your calm. It doesn't compute. It's like a foreign language they can't understand, and it terrifies them. And there's real science behind why this works. When we talk about narcissistic personality traits, we have to talk about this concept of narcissistic supply. I want you to burn that phrase into your brain. These people feed off your emotional reactions like vampires. Your attention, your adoration, your anger, your pain. It doesn't matter what the emotion is, as long as it's a strong one and it's directed at them. That's their validation. That's what makes them feel real, powerful, and important. They create chaos and drama specifically to elicit a response from you. It's a calculated, albeit pathological, strategy. So when you deny them that reaction, when you cut off their supply, they don't know what to do with themselves. They're left with their own emptiness, their own internal void. And there is nothing more frightening to a narcissist than that. They'll escalate, they'll try harder, they might even rage, but it's the rage of a desperate addict cut off from their drug. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. Have you ever noticed how a narcissist in your life reacts when you don't give them the emotional response they're fishing for? Maybe you just went quiet, or you changed the subject, or you just looked at them with a neutral expression. What happened? I want you to drop me a comment and tell me about it. I'm going to be reading every single one, because your stories are what make this real for everyone else. What we're going to do in the coming days is arm you. We're going to lay out 7 specific, powerful, and deadly calm responses that you can use. And let me be clear, these aren't just clever phrases to memorize. These are strategic weapons. Each one is designed to do something specific to a narcissist's psychology. They're designed to disarm them, to expose their flawed logic, to set boundaries they can't cross, and ultimately, to make them see that their games don't work on you anymore. You're going to learn how to become a psychological fortress, impenetrable to their manipulation. You're going to learn to play chess while they're still playing checkers, so get ready. Because what you need to remember, what you need to hold on to, is that you can't control them. You ain't ever going to change them, and you'll drive yourself crazy trying. But you can sure as hell control how you respond. And when you change your response, you change the entire dynamic. You change everything. All right, let's get down to business. The first deadly calm response is so simple, you're going to think I've lost my mind. But trust me, this phrase will drive a narcissist absolutely crazy. It's 4 simple words. That's an interesting perspective. That's it. That's your first weapon. And I know what you're thinking. That's it, Dr. Phil. That's not a weapon. That's just being polite. Well, let me tell you, in the world of psychological warfare against a narcissist, politeness can be the most devastating tool you have. When you say, That's an interesting perspective. You are performing a masterful act of psychological jujitsu. You see, a narcissist lives in a world of absolutes. Their opinion isn't an opinion, it's a fact. Their worldview isn't a worldview, it's the gospel truth. Everyone else is either right or wrong. There is no in between. So when they launch into one of their tirades, when they tell you how things are, what you did wrong, or what the absolute truth of a situation is, they are expecting one of two responses. You either fight back or you fold. They want the argument or they want the submission. What they absolutely cannot handle is neutrality. By saying, that's an interesting perspective, you are not agreeing with them. But you're not disagreeing either. You are taking their gospel truth and calmly placing it on a shelf alongside countless other opinions. You are demoting their declaration from fact to mere perspective. For a narcissist who believes they are the sole arbiter of reality, this is psychologically devastating. You're not attacking them so they can't play the victim. You're not agreeing so they get no supply. You've just taken their power move and completely neutralized it with 4 quiet words. The psychology behind why this works is rooted in their desperate, all-consuming need for validation. A narcissist's entire sense of self is a fragile house of cards built on external validation. They need you to mirror their greatness back to them. They need you to confirm their reality. So they want you to either fight them or bow down to them. If you fight, you're giving them attention and confirming their importance. You're showing them they've gotten under your skin. If you bow down, you're validating their superiority. Both outcomes feed the beast. But this response does neither. It neutralizes them. It's like intellectual judo. You're using their own force against them. They come at you with this tremendous force of their own self-importance, expecting to hit a solid wall or a soft cushion. Instead, they find nothing, just a calm, quiet space where their force dissipates into nothingness. You've refused to play the game by their rules, and it short-circuits their entire operating system. They are left standing there, exposed and powerless because you refuse to engage on their terms. So where do you use this? Let me paint you a picture of how this plays out in the real world. Scenario 1, your narcissistic boss. He comes to your desk fuming about a project. This report is a complete disaster! It's all wrong. You clearly didn't listen to a word I said. We're going to lose the client because of this? The old you would have gotten defensive, saying, but I did exactly what you asked? Or you would have crumbled, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'll fix it right now. The new you looks up from your computer, makes eye contact, keeps your face completely neutral, and says, that's an interesting perspective. And then you just sit there, in silence. Don't add another word. Don't say, that's an interesting perspective, but no. The power is in the period at the end of that sentence. Your boss is left standing there, engine revving with nowhere to go. He can't fire you for being calm. He can't write you up for finding his opinion interesting. He's been disarmed. Scenario 2, the narcissistic family member. You're at a family dinner, and your brother-in-law starts holding court. The problem with this country is that people are just too sensitive. Everyone needs to just toughen up. If I were in charge, I'd fix things in a week. He looks around, expecting nods of agreement or someone to challenge him. Instead of engaging, you calmly take a sip of your drink and say, that's an interesting perspective. Then you turn to your niece and ask her about school. You've just invalidated his entire monologue without being rude. You've signaled to everyone at the table that his pronouncements are not fact, but just one of many perspectives, and not one you feel compelled to engage with. You've taken the wind right out of his sails. Scenario 3, the narcissistic friend who constantly puts you down with backhanded compliments. That's a brave choice for a dress. I don't think I'd have the confidence to wear something that loud. She's looking for you to get flustered to justify your choice. You just smile faintly and say, that's an interesting perspective. And then you change the subject. You've refused to take the bait. You've shown her that her opinion of your dress holds no power over you. Now, what should you expect when you start using this? Let me be clear, they're going to escalate at first. This is predictable. It's called an extinction burst. When a behavior that used to get a reward suddenly stops getting that reward, the subject will try the behavior more intensely before giving up. The narcissist will get louder, more aggressive. They might say, "Interesting, what's that supposed to mean? Are you calling me a liar?" They are desperately trying to get that emotional reaction back. But here's the thing, you stay calm. You are a rock. You can even repeat the phrase. I'm just saying, it's an interesting perspective. I'm thinking about what you said. Eventually, they will burn themselves out. They are a toddler throwing a tantrum, and you are the parent who refuses to give in. They will run out of energy and be left confused and frustrated. So here's your homework. I want you to practice this. Go look in the mirror and say it. That's an interesting perspective. Say it until it feels natural. Practice keeping your face neutral, your voice calm, and even get comfortable with the awkward silence that follows. That silence is your victory. That silence is the sound of you taking your power back. All right, let's move on to our second weapon. Response number 2 is what I call the validation without agreement technique, and it's going to make the narcissist in your life start to question their own reality. This one is subtle, it's slick, and it slides right under their radar before they even know what hit them. The phrase is simple. "I can see why you'd think that." Now, this might sound similar to our last response, but it works on a completely different psychological level. This isn't just about neutralizing them. This is about making them feel heard while simultaneously giving their argument absolutely no ground to stand on. The genius of this response is in its beautiful, infuriating ambiguity. When you tell a narcissist, "I can see why you'd think that," you are doing something remarkable. You are acknowledging their thought process. You're saying, given who you are, given your experiences, given your particular way of looking at the world, it makes sense that you would arrive at that conclusion. It sounds supportive, doesn't it? It sounds like you're on their side. But what you're actually doing is deeply dismissive. You're not saying their conclusion is right. You're not saying it's logical or based in reality. You're basically treating them like a child who has just explained why they believe the moon is made of cheese. You pat them on the head and say, "Oh, I can see why you'd think that." You're validating their feeling or their thought process without validating the content of their argument. It's a verbal sleight of hand, and they won't know how to counter it. Let me give you a case study from my practice. I was working with a woman, we'll call her Brenda, who was married to a man, let's call him Tom, who was a classic narcissist. Their life was a constant cycle of him creating a problem, blaming her for it, and her getting exhausted trying to defend herself. One of his favorite tactics was to accuse her of mismanaging their finances, even though she paid all the bills and was incredibly meticulous. He'd say things like, "I just saw the credit card bill. It's outrageous! You're spending us into the poorhouse. You have no respect for how hard I work." For years, Brenda would pull out spreadsheets, bank statements, and receipts, trying to prove to him that every penny was accounted for and that most of the spending was on necessities or things they'd both agreed on. It was a pointless, soul-crushing exercise. He didn't care about the facts. He cared about the drama and the control. So we changed the script. The next time he launched his attack, Brenda took a deep breath. She let him finish his tirade. Then she looked at him with a calm, almost sympathetic expression and said, "Honey, I can see why you'd think that. Looking at that total without a breakdown, it must be a shock." Tom just stopped. He was all geared up for a fight, ready for her tears or her frantic defense. He got neither. He just stood there and stammered, "Well, yeah, it is a shock." Brenda just nodded. "I get it." And then she walked out of the room. The change, she told me, was immediate and dramatic. He followed her, trying to re-engage, but the fight had no oxygen. He couldn't accuse her of not listening. She just told him she could see his point of view. He couldn't escalate because she wasn't fighting back. He was left completely deflated. She didn't agree with him, but she validated the emotion he was pretending to have, and it shut him down completely. This brings us to a critical distinction. You have to understand the difference between validation and agreement. A lot of people, especially compassionate people, think they're the same thing. They're not. Not even close. Validation is saying, I hear you. I understand the feeling you're expressing. Your emotional reaction is acknowledged. Agreement is saying, you're right. Your version of the facts is the correct one. I submit to your reality. Narcissists don't just want validation, they demand agreement. They need you to consign their delusions. When you only give them validation, it's like offering a starving man a picture of a steak. It acknowledges his hunger but does nothing to satisfy it. They are left feeling profoundly unsatisfied and confused because you've given them something that feels like empathy but lacks the substance of submission they truly crave. Now, let's talk about some advanced techniques, because your delivery here is everything. Your tone of voice has to be absolutely neutral, maybe even a little warm, but completely detached. There can be no sarcasm, no hint of condescension. You have to deliver the line with the calm, reassuring tone of a therapist talking to a patient. Think about it. A therapist doesn't say, "You're right, your boss is a monster." They say, "I can understand why that interaction would make you feel angry." See the difference? Your body language has to match. No eye rolling, no deep sighs, no crossed arms, just an open, calm posture. You are the calm eye of their hurricane. Your delivery has to be so genuinely neutral that it gives them nothing to attack. And this is where people make mistakes, so listen up. The most common mistake is adding an explanation or a justification. You cannot say, "I can see why you'd think that, but here's why you're wrong," the moment you add the word. But you've just entered the argument. You've taken their bait. The power of this phrase lies in its finality. You say it and then you stop talking. You let the silence do the heavy lifting. Don't justify your response. Don't explain what you mean by it. If they push and say, "What do you mean by that?" you can just calmly repeat, "I just mean that I can see your perspective." Just say it and stop talking. Let them wrestle with it. Let them be the one to fill the awkward silence. Because in that silence, they're not fighting you, they're fighting themselves. And that's a battle you'll win every single time. All right, I hope you've been practicing. Because here's where we get into some advanced psychological warfare. The first two responses were about defense, about neutralizing and deflecting. This next one is about going on the offense, but in the quietest, most devastating way possible. This response is going to expose the narcissist's lack of actual logic, and they are going to hate you for it. The phrase is, "Help me understand your logic." Now, why do narcissists hate being asked to explain themselves? I mean, really hate it. It's because their entire world is built on a foundation of emotion, not logic. Their arguments aren't carefully constructed towers of reason. They're tidal waves of feeling. They feel slighted, so they are slighted. They feel they are right, so they are right. Their pronouncements are not meant to be analyzed. They are meant to be felt and reacted to. They are used to people either accepting their statements as gospel or rejecting them outright, leading to a fight. Both reactions feed them. What they are completely unprepared for is a calm, rational request to see their work. When you ask them to explain their logic, you are forcing them to do something they are fundamentally incapable of doing, thinking critically about their own emotional conclusions. You're asking them to show you the math, but they don't have any. They just have the answer they decided on, and your request exposes the fact that they have no formula to back it up. For them, thinking is not a process of discovery, it's a tool to justify what they already feel. And when you put that tool under a spotlight, it falls apart. This technique is really the Socratic method in action. Socrates didn't run around telling people they were wrong, he just asked them questions. He'd ask for clarification, for definitions, for the logical steps that led them to their beliefs. And more often than not, people would talk themselves into a corner, forced to confront the inconsistencies and fallacies in their own thinking. That is exactly what you are doing here. You are not arguing with the narcissist. You are not telling them they're wrong. You are simply and calmly asking for clarification. It is the most powerful intellectual mirror you can hold up to their illogical thinking. You're saying, "I'm taking you seriously. I'm taking your intellect so seriously that I want to understand your process. They can't handle that kind of scrutiny. Follow-up questions are your best friend here. Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that because I was 5 minutes late, it proves I don't respect you at all. Can you just walk me through the logic that connects those 2 points? Or what specific evidence are you basing that conclusion on? You are calmly dissecting their emotional tantrum with a logical scalpel. Let me show you exactly how this plays out in the real world, because this is a game changer. Imagine you're at work. Your narcissistic manager storms into a meeting and announces, "Effective immediately, we are scrapping the entire marketing plan we've worked on for 3 months. We're going in a completely new direction. It's what's best for the company." The room goes silent. People are panicked, confused. The old you would have said, "But we've invested so much time! The data supports the old plan," and a huge fight would have started. The new you waits for a calm moment, looks your manager in the eye with a look of sincere concentration and says, "This is a big shift, and I want to make sure the whole team is aligned and executes it perfectly. To do that, could you help us understand the logic behind this new direction? What are the key data points that led to this decision?" Boom. You've just put the onus entirely on them to justify a decision that was likely based on a whim or a feeling of being ignored. Or how about a family dinner? Your uncle starts spouting off some inflammatory, illogical nonsense he read on the internet. All the problems in this city are because of the politicians. It's just a fact. The table gets tense. People are ready to argue. You don't. You just look at him with genuine curiosity and say, "Wow, Uncle Jim, that's a really strong conclusion. I'm trying to follow your reasoning. Can you help me understand the logic that got you there? What are the steps?" You haven't called him a bigot. You haven't attacked him. You've just asked him to show his work, and he can't. This even works on social media, the narcissist playground. Someone leaves a nasty, illogical, attacking comment on your post. Instead of deleting it or getting into a flame war, you just reply, "I'm genuinely trying to follow your train of thought here, but I'm missing a few steps. Can you help me understand the logic you used to reach that conclusion?" You've just exposed them in front of everyone, not by being mean, but by being reasonable. Now, I cannot stress this enough. The key to this entire technique is your tone. You have to sound genuinely curious. You have to be an actor. Your tone must be one of a humble student trying to learn from a great mind. If there is even a hint of sarcasm, a whiff of a gotcha attitude, it will not work. They will seize on that sarcasm as an attack, and the whole thing will blow up. You have to think of yourself as a scientist studying a strange, exotic specimen. You're not judging it, you're just trying to understand its bizarre behavior. Your calm, genuine curiosity is what makes this so maddening for them. So what happens when they can't explain their logic, which will be 99% of the time? Get ready for the predictable pattern. First, they'll get frustrated. You'll see it in their face. Then they'll attack you personally. "Why are you questioning me? Are you trying to make me look stupid? What's your problem?" They are deflecting from their inability to answer by making you the problem. Finally, when that doesn't work, they'll change the subject completely. This is a stupid conversation. It doesn't even matter. Let's talk about something else. All of these are signs that you've won. You have successfully cornered them with logic, and their only escape is to deflect, attack, or flee. And every time they do, you've just reinforced your own power and exposed their weakness. All right, let's talk about the big guns. The responses we've discussed so far have been about deflecting, neutralizing, and using their own twisted logic against them. But sometimes you got to draw a hard line in the sand. Sometimes you have to build a wall. And this next response is your boundary marker. It's firm, it's final, and it is absolutely infuriating to a narcissist. It's 5 simple words. I'm not going to engage. Let's talk about the power of setting boundaries, because you have to understand this at a gut level. Narcissists are boundary bulldozers. That's what they do. They don't see the lines other people respect. To them, your boundaries are just suggestions, little fences to be pushed over to see if they can They push and they push and they push, testing your limits, enjoying the process, waiting for you to snap. Your emotional explosion is their finish line. But this response, "I'm not going to engage," it stops them dead in their tracks. It's not a suggestion, it's a declaration. It's you standing in front of that bulldozer, holding up your hand and saying, "You shall not pass." It's like putting up a solid brick wall where there used to be a flimsy fence. They can ram into it all they want, but they're not getting through. They can't climb it, they can't go around it, because the wall isn't just a physical barrier, it's a statement of your own sovereignty. You are declaring that this conversation, this line of attack, this particular brand of crazy ends right here, right now. Now, I want to be very clear about something. This is the nuclear option. This is not your first response. In many cases, it's your last resort. You don't pull this one out when you're having a simple disagreement about what to have for dinner. You save this for when the abuse starts. You use this when they're using their gaslighting tactics, when they're trying to make you question your own sanity. That's not what happened. "You're crazy. You're too sensitive. I never said that." Your response, "I'm not going to engage with this." You use it when they're trying to drag you into their manufactured drama, when they're baiting you with insults, accusations, or outright lies, trying to get a reaction, when the conversation turns toxic, when it becomes unproductive, when it becomes about hurting you instead of resolving anything. That is your cue. You shut it down. You are refusing to be a character in their sick play. You're walking off the stage and leaving them there under the spotlight alone. I had to use this with someone in my own life, and let me tell you, it was one of the hardest but most liberating things I've ever done. This was a person who was a master of circular arguments. Every conversation would end up with me feeling confused, exhausted, and somehow to blame for whatever the issue was. They would twist my words, bring up things from years ago, and just keep talking in circles until I was so worn down I just agreed at anything to make it stop. One day, we were having a discussion that started to go down that same toxic rabbit hole. They started making accusations that were just patently false, trying to paint me as a bad person. I could feel my blood pressure rising, the old anger and frustration bubbling up. I was ready to jump back on that merry-go-round of insanity. But then I just stopped. I took a breath, and I looked at them, and I said, calmly but with absolute finality, "I'm not going to engage with that." The silence was deafening. They just stared at me, mouth half open. It was like I'd spoken in a completely different language. They tried to restart it. "What do you mean you're not going to engage? So you're just going to stand there and let me say this?" And I just repeated, "I will not engage with this conversation." And then I turned and walked into the other room. Let me tell you, it was uncomfortable. It was profoundly awkward. My heart was pounding, but it was necessary, and the relationship changed immediately. They tried to bait me a few more times over the next few days, but I held the line. They learned slowly and painfully for them that that particular button didn't work on me anymore. The bulldozer had hit a wall. This brings me to the most important part of this entire strategy. The follow-through is crucial. Absolutely non-negotiably crucial. You cannot just say the words and then let them drag you back into the argument 5 minutes later. If you do that, you've just taught them that your wall is made of paper. You have to be prepared to walk away. You have to be prepared to physically leave the room if necessary. Hang up the phone. In the text exchange, your actions have to match your words. When you say, "I'm not engaging," you have to mean it with every fiber of your being. You are ending the interaction. Period. This isn't a negotiating tactic, it's a full stop. So what happens after you do this? What's the aftermath? Well, get ready, because they are going to test you. Oh, are they going to test you? They will try to bait you back in. They might apologize, not because they're sorry, but because they want to see if an apology will get you to re-engage. They might try to start a fight about something else entirely. They might try to use guilt. I can't believe you just walk away from me when I'm so upset. They are rattling the bars of their cage, checking for a weak spot. And this is where most people fail. They feel guilty, they feel mean, and they give in. You cannot. You have to stay strong. You have to hold that boundary like your life depends on it. Because in a very real way, your emotional life does. Every time you hold that line, the wall gets stronger. Every time you refuse to engage, you take back another piece of your own soul. You are teaching them through your actions that the rules have changed forever. Now, if the last response was a brick wall, this next one is a smoke bomb. It's an escape hatch. This response is pure genius because it sounds like you're taking them seriously, but what you're really doing is dismissing them politely, and they can't argue with politeness. It's a beautiful piece of psychological misdirection. The phrase, "I'll think about what you've said," simple, respectful, and utterly infuriating to a narcissist. Let's dive into the psychology of the delayed response, because this is key. Narcissists are creatures of immediacy. They operate in the now. They need that instant reaction from you. That's their fix. Your anger, your tears, your fear, your frantic defense, that immediate emotional feedback is the electricity that powers their entire ego. It confirms they have an impact, that they matter, that they control the emotional temperature of the room. By delaying your response, you are starving them of that supply. You're not saying no, you're just saying not now. And for a narcissist, not now feels a lot like never. It's like putting them on an indefinite hold. The music is playing. They know someone is technically on the other end of the line, but they're not getting what they want. You've taken their urgent life or death drama and turned it into a low priority item on your to-do list. You've essentially said, "Your crisis is not my emergency." And this is precisely why it drives them absolutely crazy. Think about it. What can they possibly say? They can't attack you for being thoughtful. They can't yell at you for wanting to consider their words carefully. If they do, they reveal themselves to be the unreasonable, demanding child they truly are. What do you mean you have to think about it? You should know the answer now! See how ridiculous that sounds? They are left completely hamstrung. They don't get the satisfaction of your immediate emotional reaction, which is what they were really after. But they also don't have a legitimate reason to get angry with you. It is the ultimate in passive control. You are controlling the timeline. You are controlling the flow of information. You are controlling the entire interaction, all under the guise of being reasonable and considerate. You're playing chess while they're playing checkers. They're looking for a quick, brutish capture, and you're thinking 3 moves ahead, calmly putting them in a position where they have no good moves left. The art of the non-committal response is a skill you need to master. You are not agreeing with them. You are not disagreeing with them. You are simply taking their statement, their demand, or their accusation and putting it in a pending file in your own mind. You are buying yourself time. And time is your absolute best friend when dealing with a narcissist. Time allows the emotional storm to pass. Time allows you to get calm, get centered, and see the situation clearly away from their toxic influence. Time allows their manufactured urgency to dissipate into the irrelevance it deserves. Let's run through some scenarios. Your narcissistic mother calls you up and starts in with the unsolicited advice. That's really just a string of criticisms. You know, I saw your kids the other day and they were just running wild. If you were a more disciplined parent, they wouldn't behave like that. You need to be stricter. The old you would have gotten defensive. The new you takes a breath and says, "Him? I'll have to think about what you said, Mom. Thanks for calling." And then you find a reason to end the call. You haven't agreed you're a bad parent. You haven't started a fight. You've just taken her grenade, politely refused to pull the pin, and set it gently on a table to be ignored. Or your partner, who has narcissistic tendencies, comes home spoiling for a fight. They pick on something small and blow it completely out of proportion. "I can't believe you didn't unload the dishwasher." It's just proof that you don't care about me or this house at all. We need to talk about your lack of commitment right now. They want the drama now. You look at them calmly and say, "I can see you're upset. What you're saying is serious, and I want to give it the attention it deserves. I'm going to think about what you've said, and we can talk about it later. You've just refused to have a fight on their chaotic terms. You've postponed it to a time of your choosing, a time that, by the way, may never come. Now, you can get creative with this. There are advanced variations that you can tailor to the situation. If they're throwing a bunch of twisted facts and figures at you, you can say, "That's a lot of information to take in. I need some time to process it." This is perfect for the workplace narcissist who tries to overwhelm you with data to prove their point. If they're making a deeply personal attack, you can say, "Let me give that some thought." It's a little softer, a little more personal, but just as non-committal. If they're presenting a completely one-sided story where they are the hero and someone else is the villain, you can say, "I want to make sure I consider all the angles on this. Each variation serves a different purpose, but they all achieve the same goal. They stop the conversation, they deny the immediate reaction, and they put you back in control of the timeline." This leads us to the most important part, the follow-up strategy. Let me be crystal clear. You don't actually have to get back to them. In fact, most of the time, silence is the best and only follow-up required. Your goal was to end the toxic interaction, not to genuinely ponder their nonsense. By the next day, they've likely forgotten about it and moved on to their next manufactured crisis anyway. You just let it die, don't bring it up again. If they bring it up again, which is rare but possible, you can simply say, "Yes, I thought about it and I've decided to let it go." Or, "I've considered it and I don't see it the same way." Notice you're not reopening the debate, you're delivering a final verdict. If you do choose to respond, it is always on your terms. It's when you are calm, prepared, and in a safe space, not when they are demanding it in the heat of the moment. You've taken back the power of time, and in doing so, you've taken back control of your own peace of mind. All right, we've been building our arsenal. We've learned how to deflect, how to neutralize, how to build walls and create smoke screens. Now, we're ending with the two most powerful responses in your entire arsenal. These aren't just tools, these are relationship changers. These are the phrases that, if you use them correctly and consistently, will ensure the narcissist in your life will never be able to manipulate you in the same way again. These are your ultimate weapons. Let's start with response number 6, a phrase of beautiful and apologetic simplicity. "That doesn't work for me." This phrase is about the purest form of personal boundary setting. It is not a request. It is not an opinion. It is a declaration of fact. When a narcissist makes an unreasonable demand, suggests something that violates your values, or tries to push you into a situation you're not comfortable with, they are testing the limits of your reality. Your reality is that their suggestion is unacceptable. So you state it as such, "That doesn't work for me." The beauty is in its simplicity. You are not explaining why it doesn't work for you. You are not justifying your position. You are not opening the floor for a debate the moment you add because you have given them something to attack. If you say, that doesn't work for me because I'm busy, they'll say, "Well, you can make time." If you say, "That doesn't work for me because I don't agree with it," they'll spend the next hour trying to change your mind. But when you just say, "That doesn't work for me," period, what can they say? They are left staring at a fact about you that is as unchangeable as your height or your eye color. It is an immovable object. Let's put this into practice. Your narcissistic boss drops a huge project on your desk at 4:55 p.m. on a Friday and says, "I need this done by Monday morning." The old you would have panicked, canceled your weekend plans, and seethed with resentment. The new you looks at your boss calmly and says, "That timeline doesn't work for me." Your boss, stunned, says, "What do you mean it doesn't work for you?" You can calmly reply, "I can have it for you by the end of the day on Tuesday." You're not refusing to do the work. You're refusing to accept their unreasonable terms. You've stated your boundary as a simple fact. Or your narcissistic friend who always seems to forget her wallet when you go out to dinner says, "Hey, can you cover me again? I'll totally get you back." Instead of sighing and pulling out your credit card, you just look at her and say with a neutral smile, "Actually, that doesn't work for me anymore." And then you just wait, Let her figure it out. You are not responsible for her irresponsibility. You've stated your boundary. It is a complete sentence.